Hello, Cowboys Nation. This is Sean Martin from InsideTheStar.com, and another game of Matt Castle awaits on Saturday for the Dallas Cowboys. As inexcusable as it is, we get to sit through 4 more quarters of Matt Castle football as we are just 3 games away from ending the nightmare season. It is 2015, currently sitting at 4-9. The New York Jets stand in our way on Saturday night now after that loss in Green Bay. And joining me here in the WMSC studios is Craig Gorbunoff of InterstateofGreen.com and the Code Green podcast, which is on that site as well. Here to give us a little bit of the Jets' perspective on what we can look for in this game besides most likely another Cowboys loss. But we'll get to that. Let's start with the first thing that Cowboys fans probably think of when they think of the Jets over the past couple of years as well, and that's this defensive unit. Obviously, Darrelle Revis back with the team. Early on in the year, they were forcing a ton of turnovers, kind of dropped down a little bit in the middle of the season, but seem to have picked it back up in these past couple of weeks. What's been the most impressive part of this defensive unit for you personally this season?
You know, I think the easy answer is going to say Darrelle Revis in the secondary, but really it's this defensive line that they've been able to assemble over the past couple of years in the draft. You mentioned the turnovers earlier in the season. We're averaging like 5 turnovers a game. That's not something.
It wasn't sustainable.
Yeah, it's not something you're going to keep up. Really, 1 to 2 is about average. But when you look at this defensive front, they're able to get pressure from pretty much everyone along the defensive line, whether that's Leonard Williams, whether that's Muhammad Wilkerson, who had an excellent game against the Titans, Sheldon Richardson, Damon Harrison. They're able to clog up those lanes for the running game, get some pressure on the quarterback. They don't always necessarily equate to sacks, but they really are able to dominate the trenches and make things difficult for the opposing offenses. And that's sort of what we've seen over the past 3 weeks in this 3-game win streak.
It seems similar to the Cowboys pass rush in a sense in defensive front where they kind of come in bunches and then they don't make a ton of impact, but at least they're there to stop the run. And one difference you did point out was forcing turnovers because that's something that the Cowboys have just not been able to do at all so far this season. We'll see how the Jets defense could do against, once again, of course, Matt Castle and Darren McFadden going up against that front. Should be very interesting. Todd Bowles, obviously the new head coach of this team. Everybody knew about Rex Ryan when he was with the Jets. What's been the biggest difference that you notice in this team from what you saw with Rex Ryan and what you're seeing in Todd Bowles' first year?
Well, with Rex Ryan, he liked to be sort of the focal point of the New York Jets. Yep. He was going to go out there, he was going to talk, and he was going to be the scapegoat, if you will. He was going to talk all the trash, and if his team didn't back him up, he was going to take the blame for it. Whereas Todd Bowles is all about, let your play do the talking for you, and if you don't show up on game day, like, it's your fault. I'm not saying, like, he's not accountable for it, but he knows, like, it's all a collective unit. The team is one unit. It's not Rex and the Jets. It's just the Jets, and Todd Bowles just happens to be the spokesperson for it. I think it's really made a difference. They're not so focused on making a splashy New York Post headline. Right. It's all about football. It's all about performance, and that's what we've seen out of this team. I mean, this offense is playing at a level that I haven't seen really since Brett Favre was the quarterback in 2008. And just those first couple of games where he was throwing a ridiculous amount of touchdowns before he injured his shoulder. That's really the last time I've seen this offense work so well.
But the sounds of it is kind of similar to a guy the Cowboys have at the head coach position. Obviously, Jason Garrett, a little bit under the radar, a little bit quieter than what you're used to with the Cowboys. But it works for the most part as long as this team is going good. And when it's not, he can kind of, deflect blame and deflect, get through the season pretty much is now what his goal is the rest of the way. All right, you mentioned the offense. Let's talk about that for the Jets. Ryan Fitzpatrick, a name that's been thrown around by Cowboys fans these past couple of days, is just kind of, hey, here's a guy we could have had instead of Matt Castle. You guys are with him instead, and he's been pretty good. What's been your evaluation of the quarterback play you've gotten out of Fitzpatrick, which you probably expected coming into the season is the level you were going to get, or has he been a little bit surprising?
Well, just real quick to touch back on Jason Garrett, I think he's a coach who gets a little bit too criticized. I actually like Jason Garrett. I think he's one of the best coaches in the NFC East. You could debate Tom Coughlin.
Coughlin should have been fired right after that Jets game.
I mean, Coughlin, has the 2 Super Bowls, so I suppose you could give him the credit, but he hasn't been the same coach as of late. But back to my boy Fitzmagic.
Oh, boy.
No, in all actuality, coming into the season, I did not have high hopes for Ryan Fitzpatrick. In the early parts of training camp, Geno Smith was looking like one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL.
Somehow.
I mean, he looked great in practice. He had great arm strength. He was reading the field well. He didn't throw many interceptions against this secondary. He had a strong command over the team, and then the incident with IK happened.
Right.
Fitzpatrick took the reins, and I was very scared for this season. And then Fitzpatrick did what I was surprised happened. He got off to a hot start, and then he started to fall off a little bit. And that's what I expected. I was like, we know what Fitzpatrick is. He's an okay quarterback. But these past couple of games, Fitzpatrick's record in December over his career is garbage. He's not a good quarterback in December. However, this season, it's completely different. Since he trimmed the beard after the Bills game.
There we go.
As soon as he trimmed the beard, he has 9 touchdowns, no interceptions, 3 wins. He just won AFC Player of the Week this week.
So it's all about the beard.
It's all about the beard. It had me wondering, because I started to think back on his career for a little bit. I remember him being a better quarterback when he doesn't have the beard.
Right.
I wonder what the actual stats on that is.
We'll have to go back and we'll figure that out.
That'd be something like impossible to track, but I really would want to know. And honestly, he's having a very good season. Over 3,000 yards, 25 touchdowns. He has 2 elite receivers in Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker. My only concern is the offensive line on the Jets doesn't quite protect him enough, and he doesn't know how to slide.
No, he doesn't.
Whatsoever. So when he scrambles and he gets loose in the open field, I hold my breath every time, because that could be it. He could tear his ACL and be done for the season.
You mentioned Fitzpatrick and not being as upright as as often as you wish he was. Watching this Jets team, rooting for them every week. How do you see him matching up against this Dallas defense that, again, at times can get after the quarterback, so that might be something to watch. The secondary has played decently well as a unit. They just cut Tyler Patman, so that's going to be interesting to watch. But you still have Morris Claiborne playing pretty well. I thought Brandon Carr was actually very good against the Packers. Byron Jones is obviously a stud as a rookie. So this secondary has shown its flashes of being very good. We'll see how they move forward. The pass rush at times can be good and might have a favorable matchup against the Jets offensive line that you alluded to. So how do you see Fitzpatrick handling Saturday night?
Well, Sean, I really let numbers do the talking. And when you look at the Cowboys defense, they allow approximately 24 points per game and 335 yards per game. That's about what the Jets offense is. Mm-hmm. I think we're going to see what we saw over the past couple of games out of this Jet offense. While the Cowboys defense isn't quite as bad as I think, most people say they are. I mean, some people say this is the worst defense ever.
No, it's top 5.
I don't know about top 5.
It was as of a week or two ago.
Maybe statistically, yeah. But I wouldn't call it a top 5 defense. They're not out there winning games. They're not out there changing games.
The main problem with them is they can't force a single turnover after leading the world in turnovers last year.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, that's what makes a good defense: being able to turn the ball over and get it back to your offense to score points.
Right.
While I think they're an okay defense, I think you're going to see the Jets able to march down the field and score at least a couple of drives. I think the defense will show up here or there, but they're going to give up enough X plays where, the Jets are going to be able to get out to an early lead, and Matt Castle's just not going to be able to overcome it.
Sounds like a lovely Saturday night for Cowboys Nation. If there's one aspect that you think the Cowboys can succeed in against the Jets, do you think the Jets, a weakness that the Jets have that you really think the Cowboys can exploit, what would it be? Would it be that pass rush that we just mentioned? Or, most likely you don't think so because you think the Jets are going to put up points. So where else are you looking to kind of give the Cowboys some optimism in this game?
Darren McFadden. Look for Darren McFadden on Demario Davis or David Harris. We've seen multiple times this season little wheel routes by running backs against one of these middle linebackers turn into big scores. That's going to be a huge matchup to watch out for. Also, this Jet defense, even though statistically they're good against the run, certain games they just seem to not be able to stop it whatsoever.
The Cowboys' running game was great against Green Bay and in flash as a team. There would be like a 50-yard run by McFadden, and you wouldn't hear from him again until the next quarter. And then, Robert Turbins at some point later on would have a big run. So in flashes, this running game was great. Of course, they had to abandon it because they were trailing. So if the
That's
Cowboys
exactly it. If the Cowboys can stay in the game, not be down by 2 scores,
right.
I think the run game will eventually catch up to the Jets defense. And that's really going to be I think that the big difference, if they're able to control the clock, run the football, they don't even necessarily have to get touchdowns out of it. It can be field goals, but
Dan the Man Bailey.
Yeah, Dan Bailey's a great kicker, like absolutely a great kicker. But I think the matchup of McFadden and the linebackers is going to be the key one to watch for the Cowboys offensively. I think if Darren McFadden can take advantage of the poor coverage of Demario Davis, the Cowboys offense should be able to do a little bit more than expected. You mentioned this game was on a Saturday night, and Sean, I always think it's weird when there's a Thursday night game or a Monday night game.
Well, Saturday seems even more strange.
And
but yeah.
And Saturday night, exactly, but it's outside the norm. Football's usually played on Sundays, and then I think it creates a weird X factor when it's played on a different night. Do you feel like that's going to affect the way the game is going to be played?
I mean, I don't know what to expect from either of these teams, really, especially the Cowboys. I think I have somewhat of an idea what to expect from the Jets. I don't think it'll affect them all that much. They say defense travels well and plays well if it is a good defense, no matter what. So I think the Jets' defense will be fine coming off, a short of rest or short of preparation, what have you, especially going against Matt Castle. I don't know what to expect from the Cowboys if this game is played on, Saturday, Sunday, or 5 hours from now. So, we'll see what we get from the Cowboys, and if there's anything that noticeably jumps out at you, it says, yep, that is because we're playing this game tonight and not tomorrow. But I don't think there'll be anything major.
Yeah, I feel like that's true, but just for whatever reason, at the same time, I always get a little wary, especially with Thursday night games. I think the Thursday
night games have been they've gotten better on one hand, if you want to be optimistic about it, but they've been hard to predict for sure.
Yeah, it makes it really kind of difficult because it's a whole new preparation. Well, I don't think one day is going to be much of a difference. You have to keep in mind the Jets are the away team as well, so that means they've had to travel a day early. It's one less day of practice, one less day to get healthy, one less day to get your timings down. My initial thoughts of this game were that the Jets are going to win easily. The more and more I think about it, I think it's going to be a little closer than some people will predict.
Yeah, it definitely should be close for a good portion of it if Matt Castle can, have some success throwing the ball down the field. Maybe we'll see Des Bryant catch a ball at some point in this season as well. All right, we talked about the Cowboys running back in McFadden. Let's talk about the guy running the ball for the Jets. It's been dominantly Chris Ivory. Of course, you think of this Jets team, along with the defense, they always had a stout running game. Chris Ivory has been very good for them this season. How important has he been to this entire team?
Well, Chris Ivory at times has really been the catalyst of this offense.
Mm-hmm.
Over the past couple of weeks, they've learned to not rely on him so much, but very much so early on in the season. If Chris Ivory didn't have a good game running the football, the Jets lost. And that was just the end of the story.
So teams are making Fitzpatrick beat them.
Exactly, and what has happened is Fitzpatrick has stepped up to the plate over the past couple of weeks, to the point where now Chris Ivory has an easier time running the football because the lanes are open, because now you need to worry about Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker and Bilal Powell out of the backfield and, Jeremy Curley or whoever is the third wide receiver of the Jets right now. Honestly, it's kind of a revolving door. It's Curley one day and another. Devin Smith, who just tore his ACL.
He was an exciting young player.
Yeah, he was an exciting young prospect. It's unfortunate to see injuries, especially a season-ending injury so late, because then it's going to carry into the next season.
Right.
It kind of just messes with the whole training process. But back to Chris Ivory, he runs angry. He doesn't look to go out of bounds. He's always looking to hit somebody.
Cough, cough, DMC.
Yeah, well, I think that Ivory does something a little bit special in the backfield. He is an impending free agent, and he's one I hope the Jets try to keep, because I think he's meant a lot to the Jets' running game over the past couple of seasons. But really, what's been happening to Chris Ivory's performance, like I said, he was effective really early on. It kind of dipped off. The offensive line isn't quite playing up to the standard that, really you need to have in the NFL. There's a big weakness at right guard with Brian Whitners. Breno Giacomini is a decent right tackle, but nothing spectacular. And DeBrickshaw Ferguson is on the decline as age starts to catch up to him. So the lanes aren't quite there, and yet, I think the run describes it perfectly against the Dolphins. Ivory gets hit in the backfield. He breaks like 7 tackles and then goes 50 yards for a touchdown. So he's the type of guy who can break a lot of tackles, can run through arm tackles, and it really makes some noise. But this offensive line needs to do a better job of creating the running lanes.
Yeah, so it definitely seems like this game is going to come down to however the Jets offense comes out against what the Cowboys defense can give them, and can they take that next step and finally force some consistent turnovers and get the ball into a favorable situation for Matt Castle going up against, once again, a very good Jets defense. All right, RJ Ochoa from InsideTheStar.com does his bold predictions every week for the Cowboys. Give me a bold prediction for the Jets from this game, something that you're looking for that you think could actually happen on the Jets side of things Saturday night.
All right, my bold prediction for the New York Jets this week is that Brandon Marshall, Eric Decker, and Bilal Powell all have over 100 receiving yards and a touchdown apiece.
So 3 passing touchdowns for Fitzpatrick, if not more?
Yes.
Well, I could see it. I mean, if the Cowboys' pass rush is not there once again, it wasn't really there to the level we wanted it to against Aaron Rodgers, avenging that playoff loss when it was just non-existent a year ago in the NFC divisional round. So if Fitzpatrick has time to throw and the Jets are ahead, I could definitely see him starting to spread the ball around and just everybody on the Jets team getting involved as the Cowboys would be, staring down the barrel of 4-10 here in 2015. So anything else you want to add, Craig?
Well, at least in terms of this game, I think that the New York Jets have to win out with any hopes of making the playoffs. Well, let's be realistic. The Cowboys aren't making the playoffs.
No.
they're not making the playoffs.
Nope.
But the Jets absolutely have to win out, and they actually need a little bit of help. So they need to be as in control of their own destiny as they can. Win against the Cowboys, win against the Patriots, win against the Bills. For anyone who's kind of interested in the Jets, you can follow us on Twitter at Interstate Green. Check out our website, interstateofgreen.com, and subscribe to our podcast, Code Green, on iTunes.
I definitely check that site out. Some really good Jets news, some Eagle stuff as well. I wasn't going to bring that up because I might shy a few of you away from the site. But
I'm a pure Jets writer.
Yep. Craig here just on the Jets and gave us a lot of good perspective there on the New York Jets. Craig, thanks for coming in.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right, this is once again Saul Martin from InsideTheStar.com and Cowboys Nation. We'll see what the Cowboys and Jets have in store for us on Saturday night.